Okay, call the meeting to order. Like salute. Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. So we begin our workshop. So I think it's good to read this into record. No formal actions are to be taken during briefing, workshop, special meetings, briefings, workshop meetings, or for the commission to receive information, discuss issues. The public is welcome, encouraged to attend all four of Allyn meetings. However, public comment is usually not taken at briefing, workshop, due to the commissioner's prerogative whether or not community engagement allowed with the briefing, workshop, special meeting. That's what we're just here to discuss. It's not a regular monthly meeting, but okay. Now we kick it off with the first thing on the order of things, for regular business administrative improvement.
And that portion of it will be postponed to July.
I see that. Okay. Yeah, that's no problem. Okay, water system development.
Well, that's the meat and potatoes.
That is. Here we go.
For you, the suite of documents which are paper put together, and then the stapled water system policy manual. Revamped and upgraded. We had several conversations between the engineer, lawyers, the water committee, back and forth. Did a really large rewrite on it, sent that over to our lawyers, and then they came back with this counter proposal.
All right, just cut to the chase on that one thing that was kind of like not disagreement, but there was some setting a precedent for collecting fees issue, you know, and having the council advised to have some mercy on that. We want to have that, but the committee was the committee not opposed to that still at some point?
They thought that it wasn't necessarily necessary, but
Okay.
it's really kind of a commission decision. It's more
Sure.
kind of the way that the Board of Allyn has ran its water system in the past, is to work with the people that are having a little bit of a challenge
Right.
with paying their water bills.
Yeah.
And as long as we can keep them within a reasonable point of being nearly caught up, it doesn't seem like it's something that I would suggest take it out. I mean, it's just being human. As
Yeah,
long as they're close,
exactly.
but not, 180-day salary.
So what page are we on right now regarding that conversation?
I don't have a problem with giving people,
Well,
giving people, well, I mean.
Yeah.
Giving people a little bit of grace and so
Yeah.
forth, but when they start to take advantage of it,
Right, and that's where,
then that's a whole different story, then they need to be held accountable.
no. Should be in section 3. Should be section 3.6.3.
Okay,
Hardship of extenuating.
thank you. All right.
So 3.6.
Correct. Okay, so I'm reading through this still again, but you think it'd be taken out?
No, I mean, it's really up to the commission whether in the end, the water committee suggested taking it out.
Okay,
So that there's kind of like a clear line of just 90 days, that's it. Shut the water off.
that's what I wanted to hear. I wanted to know, right?
But,
Council advises not.
well, council didn't want to advise their way.
Yeah.
Okay, they feel like it's really one of those things that you can go either way, and there's some RCWs that relate to heat-related emergencies.
Yeah,
Where you have to actually turn the water back on if the water has been shut off, and give them another opportunity. To do a payment plan.
and like, yeah, we're serious about this, but and then of course, forgive mercy, and then we're revisiting a plan to get caught up at that
And
point.
there are RCWs that also indicate that you may work with people that have hardships, et cetera, et cetera. So
Okay,
it's fine to keep it in. I have no problem on the administrative side dealing with that.
Yeah, I think we should keep it in.
absolutely. I was hoping, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that, feel that way, especially it's like. You do.
More work for us, but you know,
It
still-
is more work for us, but they are right up there. They are here.
And I don't think it's gonna be a regular issue. It's not like, it's like, yeah, I like having it in here for sure. Okay. There's just a lot of.
Another real extreme change to the policies is that to remove the commercial concept. So that it's just one rate for everybody, and commercial buildings are evaluated on a case by case basis for their development.
Right, absolutely.
And we use the American Waterworks Association an SDF chart for the multiplier.
Oh, good.
They would charge excess of the normal residential for having a commercial application.
All right. Yeah,
And you charge for water, it's not just.
So many of these commercial buildings, which, you know, we may have built on the system, we use so much more water, but you have to account for that in our the amount of connections that they would take up from the system.
right. How many commercial users do we have right now?
Yeah.
Right.
And those are all, they would be, they're not affected by this because this has to do with actual new buildings.
Right, and does, bear with me here, so we had a situation where, under the more looser version of what we had in the water policy, the nursing home situation where they moved on, right?
Yeah,
But-
there's no talk.
But now we have something that tightens that up proper, right?
Yep.
All right. I guess as far as the fees for somebody coming in commercially to take care of, what's the biggest difference in somebody kicking off a commercial, being a commercial user? Well, yeah, what is the biggest difference in a commercial user kicking things off?
Meter size and water.
Well, other than that, are there other extenuating fees beyond the normal residential for a person to come in? Yeah, please, Jeff.
There isn't, I mean, wouldn't it be something more, wouldn't it be a factor in?
So there's a factory when it comes, yes, when it comes to their use. So whatever factory that they are subject to when they actually buy into the system.
Yeah.
That's the same factory that's used against their actual bill.
So like when, like 1700 or whatever, for the extension, it's an extension. You might have the application set up at that.
Yeah, the application is a
Right.
flat fee for the application.
Right, but
But,
there's an evaluation because, for example, taking the memory care. There would have been at least 16 EIUs worth, and that would have totally changed. The fee, you might have to turbo pipe to it, but it dictates size, it dictates backflow, it dictates check, that, you know.
Yeah,
Check valves.
Right. okay.
As well as, our sprinklers.
Okay, that's interesting. So I was curious on, that's why it becomes a lot more users in the system, but the multiplier is the same.
They multiply
Like the
on
bigger.
their base rate is.
Okay. Huh, okay. That helps me understand. All right, good.
Another thing that was changed is the late fee structure. 1.5% doesn't make anyone accountable for anything. So, we went around and looked at other water systems and raised the late fee 10%.
Where are you right now again? Sorry.
4% is statute.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's the simple breakdown in the rate fee schedule.
That area, so it's safe, it's like,
Should be a separate page.
you fit almost in the back. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh.
good here.
The second to the last page. In the paperclip. Like, in the paperclip, packet.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Second to the last page. All the appendixes are in order of ABs.
Okay.
And then actually, the rate schedule.
Yeah.
Where the previous system had mention of connection fees and reconnection fees. They were never properly denoted, they are now. Find them in the rate schedule.
It's nice to have all that in one spot.
I know,
Another legal change was accessory dwelling fee. So many of our properties are now seeing multiple dwellings on them. And we wanted to account for the usage as well as the connection. So if they have a second dwelling on the property, it's an additional $30 fee per month under the basement. Like the mother-in-law house or the tiny home, but also not allowing them to be hooked up to a garage where they can bring the garage and the living stuff. One tried to avoid that because that wasn't something the county had approved. It's gonna be something that they've already, they've gotten approval to have that second structure.
so we can't lease that as a.
No, we can't lease that,
Yeah.
but we can, when
Or we want.
we did, one of the things the water system needs to continually do is every year or every 2 years, send out surveys to people in the water system, get information from them about how they're using their water and how it relates to the policy. Whether we get all of them back or not, we don't know.
Yeah,
But when we do check we are visually seeing properties. We can see these things that occur, and we can always send an administrative letters to address those.
yeah. Yeah, okay. This is very like
Yeah. It's nice.
a lot of work put
Extra,
into this,
extra space on that property.
Expensive.
Leak.
but,
On the pool.
Expensive.
yeah,
Yeah, like, filling the pools, that's a concern now as well.
say that again.
Filling the pools, hot tubs, things of that nature,
Yeah.
technically, backflow preventers can be installed. So we need to ensure that, when they put those types of apparatuses in, that we find out about it and let them know what the water system is going to require.
How do we police that with the backflow? I know with Belford Water, they monitor that, they require.
Right. That's
Well,
something
yeah.
that continually work towards, because I don't know exactly the answer to how to police that.
No, we
I
don't.
mean, we could send a drone over the whole landscape once a year. Then we would know, but
Mine's commercial pretty much. Yeah, I don't think they do that. I don't know if they do that with residential
Yeah.
or not.
they are required. You have a pool or a hot tub that's directly connected to the water system.
Yeah.
Must have that.
Okay.
Well, first of all, we're talking about a pool or, I mean, it's a difference between a pool
And a program.
and a hot tub. Or a jacuzzi. I mean, quite a bit different, right?
Well, they all, if they're connected to the water system, they all have a potential site back into the water system.
Okay, good. Please.
The difference is directly connected to the house versus not.
Right. If you're filling with a garden
I
hose.
mean, literally, you contaminate the system, 5 gallon bucket, if you're directly connected, max that siphons in. It's 5 gallons a day, enough to get in, back in and what have you, so. But no, the wording is directly connected.
Okay,
So if they have a hot tub and, they fill, I don't know, it's a hose.
where's the language on that?
Thanks for
Yeah,
clarifying. That's true.
What's that?
Oh, I just-
That language you would find in our actual appendix. Hold on. You'll find that in the appendix, it's not provided because it is about this fit, and it is our minimum design standards and standard construction materials. So that all the engineering and all the stuff that you need to know about having a well.
About 100 pages, yeah.
and it's not, has not,
Added.
I've looked at it.
at this point in time, it has not been changed,
Okay,
because it's part of our complete water management.
okay.
This is just our policy.
All right, that's what I'm curious about. Okay, so. And that's just, you're just talking about a part of that, that's just, that 100 pages is the rest of the manual, or that's just part of it?
That's different.
Yeah, just a different appendix that's referenced in the water policy as appendix G on the last page of the
Okay.
water policy.
Yeah, what,
You know, it shows how thrust locks have to be installed and various construction standards for when everything's sort of.
I like this.
Some of us have not followed. It's living the board.
Okay. All right, that's awesome. So, overall, you're happy with, what we have here, Jeff? I mean, you like what we have here? Were there any issues that you like
First
to
of all,
discuss?
I'll say one thing.
Yeah,
There are some disagreements, but as a committee.
Yeah.
They've occurred.
okay,
Okay,
Okay.
so anything that might be in contrary to, we've already gone through, vetted it, discussion.
were there any heated, healthy discussions, or just, it was just a matter of?
These
Back to-
discussions, even somebody is, in the Thursday, Friday, I called Travis and said, well, what if?
You did the what if? Yeah, well, that's good.
As an example, that property.
Yeah.
But, I ran into a scenario, I said, look, I don't wanna have, say, 5 lots behind the rail. I need to sign an extension agreement, provided that, the engineering, all that kind of stuff, got it all the way through. There's a fee for that, it's 5 times the 1,700, it's a lot of dollars. What I had heartburn about a little bit was that, the court, when it's doing connections, it's doing, like when a developer comes in, you're having them to get their water availability, basically leveling the whole charge, the whole 6,000 some odd that, and then the application fee and the extension fee. So, ballpark numbers, 8,000 bucks. So where I came to them and said, look, I don't care that I get the adequacy, I just want to put the front. And when we someday develop, then we'll pay whatever the going rate is for connection fee at that point in time. I'm gonna be paying to put the line in, it's gonna be reviewed by the court, it's gonna be sized accordingly to what is around. So it's gonna go through all the, hoops as far as engineering, as far as specs and, as far as the need for comprehensive plan, county, what they plan, all that kind of loading of what is needed. But, personally, I don't wanna pay. So I asked the question, fine, get a waiver and just say, hey, I don't care if you get the adequacy, I just want to put the trunk in. And someday, when we do something, then, we pay the fee as we go.
Right,
And he's gonna look into it, but it doesn't negate the contract you have.
okay,
It doesn't notice what it be is a waiver and it would come back before the board. And then be reviewed, and you may say, hey, you may say, nay.
so, but the only problematic, or the only thing that could be a problem is from that time until the time it actually is done, things could change in terms of cost and everything else.
Yes.
Do we have flexibility with that
Yeah.
later on to say, well, the sooner you do what you plan on doing, the better?
No, there's we're talking 2 different parts, we're talking building the extension.
Okay,
Yeah, so this is a matter of saying, hey, I want to apply, I want to show you my plan.
yeah,
And I want to build this extension, but I don't want the water adequacy letter today.
oh,
Okay.
okay,
Which is the one that the water adequacy is limited.
sure,
It is only, what the DOH is supply.
okay,
And Jeff was wondering if he could have a waiver to clearly say, I understand it. I understand that at the time I ask for water adequacy, it may not be there. But I want to have the infrastructure ready. So it's just a matter of a waiver and.
I'd rather roll the dice on 10,000 or the 50,000.
See, and the thing is that in Mason County, you can't get the building.
what's that?
Tell you that.
I was kind of a little concerned about some of the weeds, but you are checking into that.
Yes.
I see. It's a good,
But as an example.
Yeah.
The county, when we extend sewer, again, through due process, they have minor fees relatively speaking, because it's actually reviewed by policy, extension. And so go through the whole process, and basically, you don't, how to say this. So if we were to put a sewer line in front of 10 lots, we're gonna pay for the review, the engineering, sewer line install with all the saddles and everything, valves, what have you. But we don't pay that $12,000 connection fee until we go for the permit. That's totally different than with the port. The port's a port can't.
oh,
So in many ways, we're doing the same thing with county.
yeah,
That we're spending money, we're going through the process of getting back basically. And, again, it stops until you can't connect it, until you have a permit and pay your phone.
yeah, but it's a commitment, yeah, right, on part of the board.
No,
The
No,
only
it's
commitment
not.
that would be there, signing on the line for the infrastructure grant.
yeah,
It wouldn't be to receive adequacy.
yeah. Anyway.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
he's looking. in-
You're assuming that it's cheaper to put it in now than wait till later. So
It
you,
seems to be that way.
so you wanna need, well, it's true with everything.
Well, it really depends on your time. Are you going to be building in the next 12 months or not?
Well, see, but that goes back to, the people that are developers are thinking that way. So even though we're getting into the weeds, that's actually a good place for us to be right now. The fact that we're even asking that question and discussing it.
Sure.
Because you look back a year ago, I mean, I'm like, we're not even there yet. Well, here we are. So it's a good problem.
Right, and part of this come up because there are people offered to do, purchase properties. But then they don't come through.
Right. They're lining up right now, aren't they?
So there are some of the land that's radically
Yeah.
ready to build.
But it seems to be a reality check between what they wanna do and what comes out. They get going on that.
And that's the rubber hits the road.
Yeah. But all I'm saying, there'll be no obligation, there's no out of pocket money for it.
Okay,
Like fourplex fee as far as. And I understand the other side of this is, if we were doing the same thing for commercial, I'd say it had 16. I think back of it. For it,
Yeah.
it would be 16 times.
Yeah, that'd be 16 times to 17.5.
So in the case of our private residential, but I'm just saying, it'd be the same.
oh,
And if I can put it this way, it's a very healthy investment in the port's water system. The 17.25 is a non-refundable fee for us to process the application.
Right.
Okay, and if they're putting more infrastructure in the ground to add to more lots and waiting for those availabilities, it means we have more availabilities to sell to builders that are building right now. That want to
So you're
get the
putting-
process through.
You're putting.
Yes.
In fact, our entire water system policy now, your
Yeah.
developers pretty heavy.
okay, well, I'm comfortable with that. I mean, that just,
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not trying to make it special, you have that question, what's the whole committee? Well, there was a couple road posts, and the difference obviously is, two of the members are, one, our company, one's, manages the system, and myself, I have a system, and the board has it, so,
okay,
so technically, I'm, property owner in the service area. So.
that's right. Okay. Yeah, it's really, the differences that the three of you in the committee
Right.
have are a healthy place to have
Right.
those crossroads perspectives.
We do have differences of opinion.
Yeah.
That's good.
Travis, probably well aware of that now. And he sees, I mean, seriously, at all different levels, how one of the members looks at the pump, I look at the pump.
I would really
Looks at the pump.
like to
Different,
imagine.
different. In one respect, it's probably as good as you're gonna get at it, because you have somebody that's in water, somebody that's in water, somebody has more electrical background like me, then you have the other fellow that's a more practical. Kind of between that, water, but not like, small little system.
I think it's been a great mix.
Yeah.
I do
missed the
too.
last one, but
Yeah, I do too.
really been educational, it's really been helpful. Been
Yeah.
great.
I got that call and I had some big life stuff going on, but yeah, so are you meeting once a month or once every, how?
We're trying to do that content.
Okay, all right.
The office is still small and
Well,
very spread out.
at the very least, I want to extend my gratitude and appreciation for, this is a big, big deal. I mean, this is the meat that we've been trying to, at this point, we've been where we badly needed to get to, and we're here, so. And thank you, Travis, too. There's a lot of work, so.
And the members, all of them, did go through a majority of those. I think you have it.
Yeah. Policy.
I mean, not the section, but not the 100 page one, but all the other annexes, but primarily the things that, by the attorneys. We all through that and debated different points.
Yeah.
And that's it. We didn't all agree. What is for you is our. That's it. And.
Great.
So the only other question I have, is what about, our administrative forms that are connected to this? I mean, has there been adjustments to the forms that we use for applications or?
There's the appendixes.
Yeah, so those are all, these are all of them, then, as far as all the changes that occurred in our policy that reflect on our form, okay?
So we need to develop our extension agreement, the extension, develop our extension application, all the way through.
So
The,
how significant was the
you need to
changes?
develop a checklist so that they can kind of check off on where they're
Oh,
at
that's-
in the process.
Okay.
Water availability letters have changed.
Where's that check?
There's additional page that goes with the county supply document. The bill of sale, where we actually take ownership of the system. We have our own form for that as well. And then, the water easement form, so that we can take care of wrapping these easements up before we actually, take, final acceptance of the system that they install. Also, forms like the, past due reminder notice, when people get, to the point where they're 60 days late on their water service, and then 20 days after that, if, not, come to resolution and starting to receive payments, we send out a notice to disconnect.
All right,
It's over 90 days.
Kind of
to the
redundant.
point of disconnect.
kind of redundant, quite the way I asked that question, but so is there any other forms that are related to the policy changes? Or just,
This is the complete version as of right now.
there's nothing, that's what I want to know, there's
There's
nothing.
one other form that's not an appendix item. It is it's right at the very back. It's an agent authorization form so that when a developer or a builder is acting as a landowner's agent, we
Okay,
have a form that covers us for, yes, the owner gave them explicit permission to act as their agent,
oh,
which is something we didn't have before.
oh, interesting,
Pretty much covered down over
no kidding.
across the T's, that's what it is. Who's curse?
Is there anything missing?
Well,
Not that you know of, right?
Like anything, either grow up, this gets us in business again.
Yeah,
And as we are in business, we may see changes that we would like to.
that's a really good way to put it. Yes, Chad?
I believe, and I haven't talked to anybody before about this, but I believe it's one of the, loose ends, that it's the past. It's
What?
the past, in other words, your current users.
Oh,
And I don't know, I haven't seen any documents go through that indicate, like, for example, in a house. Somebody, like, see on block 47.
Okay.
Tennessee to Lane. It was on the system since 2020, 21. And it's all fine, and I'm sure it's paid and what have you. But it doesn't have the easements, it doesn't have that kind of thing. And so. And let's put it this way, this is a big start, this, like, from this point, helps keep things going forward.
Yeah,
Then, you know, like any system, you have to look at how do you bring the past to the current.
The discussions with our legal team have moved in that direction,
Yeah.
and it will happen, it'll start being accounted for here, we believe, around the fall.
Okay.
Just a few other circumstances need to come together before we would, pursue that.
Yeah, no problem. But I'm just saying, you asked. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm still not privy to all the other conversations. To public statements, I'm not aware of everything that's going on.
should I ask you more questions?
You can, but I'm gonna give answers like they just gave.
Okay, fair enough. No, and no, it's good. So you're right about that. This puts us back on and the proper trajectory and puts us back in business the way we should be doing it. And we're gonna learn more about things this week, but this was council's also discretion. He's looked at all this, so yeah, that's what makes me more comfortable with it for sure, other than all the input and all the work you guys did.
Well, and Travis and I talked back and forth, there's this push. Okay, because we got the problems we had, to ensuring that we never have this again. So. I didn't push out it, many members, because we didn't come up with discussion yet, but it's every time, but. This push from me to, as much as I believe Travis will be right, Travis or I are not forever. And so the board needs to be aware of certain things so that minimally, we all sink the ship, we all sink the ship. If it all rises, it all rises. But what I'm getting at is you can have decisions made, you delegate authority to do things, your day to day and what have you. But there has to be some checks and balances back to the board. So even if the board doesn't totally understand, but it has to be aware because you're the accountable
Yeah.
to the people.
Well, we
Yes.
right the ship. Now we have we have a better roadmap navigating these waters.
Right.
For lack of better.
And we have to make sure we continue to navigate it and not
Yeah.
just
Right. And you,
let it go.
I don't think that there could have been a better situation for you, Travis. I think probably for all of us. Just it's I don't mind saying this is amazing how God works. I mean, and this was
Reset.
this was a reset. This is an opportunity to go, okay, maybe this got our attention. Let's put it that way. Everything that's involved, and for you to be completely immersed in this the way you did, I don't think there would have been a better way to learn where we're at, what we should be doing. It's one of those things on a tugboat. I like to put it this way. When I worked on the tugboat for 20 years, whenever I went to another boat, you always looked at it and go, man, I can't believe they live this way. But you get back to your boat and you just walk by all the problems because you're so used to being there and don't even get your attention, right? Until something happens. Well, things have happened, it's gotten our attention, and we've righted that ship. So I'm using some analogies here, but I think that's kind of why this has been such a godsend, really, to be where we're at. You know, and I want to thank you, Travis, because I know that your blood, sweat, and tears. You know, it couldn't. You were the right person at the right time. I mean, you still have lots. We all have lots of growth, so I don't want to point on that. But I guess my point is that you had just enough piss and vinegar in you.
You rose to the occasion.
You did. Yeah, no,
That's
I mean that, you know, and I'm saying that for the record here. So, yeah,
you did a good job.
Well said. Well spoken. Thank you.
yeah. Keep up the good work because you want to keep your job too. Gotta say that.
For Allyn members of the community,
I know.
don't plan on.
All right.
Somebody tell me.
Is there any questions?
I got one more thing. To add,
Yeah, please.
Along lines of the delegation of authority. That's something that, we've had discussions with legal counsel about, getting a new one put into place at the normal time when we do the budget and everything.
That's right.
Which will also have some caveats that are special to the water system.
Okay.
So that, there's a clear guidelines.
Yeah.
When it comes to situations that may come up in the water system policy that say, hey, you need to bring this before the commission before you make a decision.
Okay. I remember that was early on in this whole thing. Well, we need to do that, but we have a lot of things to do first. And so, yeah.
That'll be, all encompassing with budget and levy, all of the things, we also, we have to bring out our steel coverage improvements and make an amendment to that as well, an update.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
That'll be the primary focus, with, some of these other things that are still going on.
Okay. Yeah, Jeff, go ahead, please.
Assuming you're done with respect to.
We're getting there.
The water system, so I can only speak to things on the water system. So I don't want to interrupt this, but I have two other things related to the water system. Beyond documents.
Beyond the policy itself?
Yep.
Okay,
So I don't want to interrupt.
no, I think it's appropriate right now to roll into that, before we get on to other matters. So, and you're like very important part of that whole thing, so this is quite appropriate, please.
Travis is going to kick out.
What's that?
Travis is going to kick out.
Okay,
Because I asked for it, that I just needed that time.
Okay.
It's a component within the water system, so you get the general grip.
okay,
It's more than just the water system, I'm focusing it to the water system.
okay,
And that is, here surely we're going to be addressing the water system, but I don't have anything else, but I'm focusing the water
okay,
for 2026.
okay,
Couple of things. I'm concerned in trying to create the budget for 2026 because, as I mentioned, I think in the last regular meeting, you only have expenses under 7 categories, as I recall, and you have 63. And I've stated, hey, I'm not married to the 63, but you gotta somehow figure out how you're spending this money.
yeah,
And the tricky part of that is where it comes from. Concern is, take legal expenses. We split two ways. You have, I'll call it, the problems you have to work. But then you have the stuff like this that you have to work.
yeah,
It's totally different.
Right.
And we may or may have it broken out. May not be good enough, but we have it broken out between the two. There's no way in heck you can tell what's going on.
okay. So the legal fees,
And I'm using that as an example.
but you are
It
specifically
doesn't-
referring to
You
legal.
can't tell a lot of things.
Okay,
Financial report should be able to tell you, as a board at least, I don't mean each individual because we each have different skills, but it should tell the board where we are with the water system, whether we're ahead, behind, and where and how. And it's hard for me to tell, looking at this.
really?
Because mine's more detailed.
Well, it's not, it's how the detail, I don't, it doesn't take a lot more to do, it just has to be handled, but
Okay.
as an example.
Yeah.
Where this gets tricky,
Okay,
at some point, we're gonna be I'm sure the community is gonna have the issue of rates, to address rates. My push, I say over and over, I believe that in time, we should be able to get these rates lower.
okay,
Okay, that's my objective.
okay,
But at the same time, the port's gotta be financially viable with its water system. So you can't have one without, you have to have it viable before you can really address the rates.
Okay.
But to give an example, and because there's no split on the legal fees, but as of last month, you were like 31,000. What was like 31,000 in legal fees under the water system?
I'm surprised.
And, okay, the problem with that is, we only budgeted 6 in one category and 5 in another, so about 11.
Okay,
So now we got about 20,000 as of last month.
okay,
Okay, so the question is, if you're running this as a, enterprise,
yeah,
how because these other monies that are coming in, we're lucky in the sense that people want connections and are connections, but that's supposed to go down the road.
It is, right,
That's where that's supposed to go.
yeah,
A good chunk of it.
right,
So yes, we're in a decent position to handle these. But there's just, like I said, there's 20,000 and just use the number, roughly. I always get mixed up because it's the number I provided you, the number you have, and then there's a number you just haven't even developed yet. But
okay,
the bottom line is, how quickly, if you're running this as an enterprise, how quickly are you going to pay that off?
so the question there is like, so what's the projection on the 2026 legal fees? Because that's where we can,
No, you gotta look at the bigger picture. The legal fees is just a symptom.
I know, I get what I'm saying, so where are the other 7 categories?
Professional services, it's like, those are the big categories. But when I say 7, it's 7 that your county has divided up. And I'm saying, it's gotta get to 63
Yeah,
or some number more than 7.
all right, I'd like to see that,
So basically, you're saying take what we have, those categories we have, and break them down even further.
No.
No.
Take the budget, and I covered this last week, a little bit with Travis. On the big picture, not the
Okay.
water system, but I'm focusing on the water system because that's the only.
it's super important,
This is a real small, I don't want to say small, a focused area.
yeah,
You can expand this to the general fund, what have you. Keep it in a water fund, it's a real, everybody can, they know the limits.
yeah,
And so what I'm getting at is, discuss with Travis what I think is needed, what either county or appointances or whatever he has to pull together. He needs the time to get this, because I'm saying, I had trouble setting the budget for 2026 based upon your reports,
okay.
as it sits right now.
So we need to sit down and look at,
It's
Let me
not,
ask you-
it's not a brain buster. The problem is the bar scales and that have not been lined up with what we report adopted as the budget.
So when it comes to the, I mean, I'm following where you want to go.
yeah,
More categories so you can make a definitive
We, Yes.
understanding, but I wanted to ask you though, breaking all that out does take time for staff and Aaron, so is it
I've done.
I believe it's broken down.
already, okay,
You just have to ask it provided that way.
Well,
The
that's-
monthly reports that you get, don't break it down.
that's what I wanted to
I'm
know.
sure there's more than 7.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think originally it was a lot more than that, but we wanted to.
Never broken down, or I've seen that barcodes and it's like.
Yeah.
this is super important,
Actually moving those codes in line, shifting those descriptions over so they match perfectly to the spreadsheet system that you.
Sure,
So
so even like with, I'm sorry, I didn't
No, no,
interrupt, but
please.
it's like even with the money that we spent exponentially about the policy, this is just.
Well, it wasn't exponential, that would be times.
Okay, you would.
Double or triple plan, yes, but not
But,
exponential.
well, you get what I'm trying to say. Okay, I'm corrected, all right?
Don't want
So,
to sound like it's a bigger budget,
But still, this policy that we've written is real, it's been kind of,
I'm not saying it's
we
not.
need to get this done now, so it's a big expense right off the top, but it's not gonna be this bad next year. It shouldn't.
No, but, okay, no problem. Okay,
right,
but as, I'll put it in the corporate, as executives of a corporation, an enterprise, okay, you've had a bunch of expenses, how are you gonna recover? You gonna take it out of stock? Are you gonna,
Gotcha.
how are you gonna, in other words,
Yeah.
because if you try to recover that in 1 year off your system,
You can't.
you can, but you're gonna raise the rates, go
Well-
up, go high. Basically right now, for every $1,000 or $1,200 you spend, it's $1.
Yeah.
A month.
I'll never
more.
forget that,
Yeah,
that's ingrained in my brain.
yeah, I mean, that'll
Yeah.
change, but I mean,
Yeah.
for now, that's kind of if you keep that in the back of your mind.
So so we identify with those things, would that'll help us,
Yes,
that'll help us, because then we
Then you
know
will
the
know.
how, the guardrails are there.
Yes.
So we kind of know that we're gonna stay within this budget, but we have to identify with those other areas.
Well, then, you will then know. But then comes the fun part, is how the decision making process.
Right.
What are you going to do?
Well, so.
And I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm saying this toward the beginning, I don't want you to, a decision.
I know.
What I'm really saying is, when you're presented as a board with a fact that you know in your water system system, you got a $20,000 difference coming out for the year. You have to, you have to do one of two things. You have to acknowledge you're not gonna do anything. You gotta acknowledge you're gonna do something and some idea how that's gonna work.
Okay.
But I mean, the water system is standing on its own, and we're trying to keep it that way. And
Exactly.
and see, this is different than what courts have had to do in the past. You haven't had to run a business, so to speak, an enterprise.
Say that again?
You haven't had to run an enterprise, this court.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other courts, I don't even know what they're into, but I'll just leave it alone. I'm just saying this court has not had to run an enterprise. They've had tax dollars and assets and through grants and different things. We've been, by hooks and by crook, but now you have this thing called water system.
Right.
It's a bit.
It's an enterprise at least, and especially since you have guidelines of trying to keep the funds tied to it, then it's even more important that you have, to me at least, minimally address it. I may disagree with how you end up solving it, but at least you gotta address it.
That's right.
I mean, that's on the committee. We disagreed on different things, but when we voted for it, it's fine, that's the way it is. And yeah, I have my issues, but the way it is. I mean, we never are gonna get what we all want. We have to work in the system and work through it.
Right.
But all I'm saying is, the budget needs work, and it sounds like we got something, an idea.
Okay.
And if we don't, it's gonna be darn hard to figure out how to do this.
So I'll
Well,
be curious.
once we get the budgets, bonus from,
What's that?
That's a different problem.
okay, but once we get that financially put us a lot better.
But that doesn't change. I'm actually giving the outline, whether you have lots of money and everybody's current, or you got problems.
Right.
What I'm talking about is universally used between both sides of the equation.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, because you gotta remember, that money, technically speaking, is for the future infrastructure.
That's right.
You have a tank that will expire. It is, statistically, doesn't mean it's gonna go bad, but it statistically has to be addressed, in 15 or 17
Okay.
years.
All right.
That's not a cheap thing. We've seen what happens with pumps. And then I'll get off that subject to one last thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of things said about what's going on with this pump. I conveyed to Travis that I'm of a different school of thought when it comes to things failing.
Okay.
Totally different school of thought. I don't believe just because it fails doesn't mean it failed. And like, for example, it's been stated even in our committee meeting that, the power's dirty. Meaning there's spikes on it and that causes problems with the pump. Minor little problem with that whole, it could be, a minor little problem, just to logically think.
Okay.
I have a well, I used to have a well that's still running
It's not the same problem.
since 2009 on the same well, the same controller, and it's still running.
So do we have protections in the system that doesn't, it's not affected by the spikes? I'll just do the simple, version of that question. A surge protection for the computer. So if the power's doing this, a surge protection. Huh? What does?
But it doesn't change how the frequencies go into the.
I'm not an electrician, so.
Let's put that, I'll put it.
Okay.
There's deviations in the signal in the AC part of it.
Okay.
What he's saying is the electronic module that runs your pump is supposed to deal with that.
Okay.
My experience is that most devices, they are created for a purpose, i.e. like this case running a pump, do not address the spikes, the noises, the transients, all the different things you get on a line. To the average human, we don't see it. The light's on, it's off, you know, it's alternating back and forth. It seems all fine and dandy. But there's things that can, there's no, for lack of better words, it's like if you're listening to radio, it's like noise static in the background. It's like static on the line.
So what's the difference between your system that we now have and the way it's running and operating that's still working?
It's still running.
And
Yeah, you have protections
So you
on
brought that up for a purpose.
No, what I'm getting at is, it's been stated what they think the failure is.
Oh.
And I got to thinking, I said, well, wait a second. You know, this has been running on an old school method, so to speak,
Okay,
and this is running on new school. I don't have any problem with new school. I love new electronics, look at it,
Well,
they
okay.
got it.
that's
But
why I
there's-
buy an old vehicle instead of a new
No,
one.
no, no,
Cause all the computers.
right.
They work better.
The problem is, there's things we can do, and I talked to Travis, that we can do as lay people and tell electricians what to do to that system there. Remembering.
Do you like his ideas that you guys discussed regarding that? I mean,
I don't think we would call it, right? Some,
okay, all right.
but for example,
All right.
there are devices you can put in front of the tank.
Yeah, there are, signal conditioner.
Yeah, and I looked that up, it's not signal.
It's not a conditioner, there's other words.
All right.
But anyway, the other thing,
I
but
want to protect it.
There's protector base.
it is basically, but now search protectors are created equal, there are different, depending whether they use electronics or other pieces of hardware, they can be differences. But remember also, this is gonna become the backup. So we have to kind of not throw all the,
Okay,
because as soon as the next thing happens at some point, hopefully we get something from Michael's from sound.
Right.
We get this done and then you get connected and then you get this thing all of a sudden.
so to your point, I just want to make sure we're protecting things, so I don't know what that looks like.
I haven't even taken the time, but for example, I'll give you an example.
All right,
Years ago, when the printers were this big, I mean like 30 centimeters. Okay, they had servo motors, A size, drive the paper, right? I remember Centronics putting out a new one, and it kept burning up motors. So I got the bright idea, we'll just put a circuit, and if you have all the electronics, you only have so much room, we put a little circuit breaker in between the drive circuit and the motor. Instead of burning up motors, it's a circuit out. And all of a sudden we get on top of the problem. Well, something like that, so I believe that simple can be addressed to this, and will need to be addressed up there too.
okay,
And I think I'm done.
all right, thank you.
I stretched it as far as I can stretch.
No, I appreciate your long-winded.
Some other day, I-
No, I really do, but we are gonna move on. No, because it brings up questions that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Your detail,
I'll just say, for example, on that pump that came out of there,
Yes, sir.
Travis and I, there's a check. I know there's a check we can do, know whether really we lost the pump or we lost. There's different things. in
I
there.
understand. No, I like people asking those questions because, when I hear the pump failed, my mind doesn't go to the pump just got old and failed, or was there something we should be doing to protect it that I probably wouldn't have even processed in my brain?
Or
Yeah,
did
brought it
or
up.
did the pump, yeah.
Right. Well, what do you mean?
That's the thing. Is
Yeah.
the pump even really fail?
I don't know. How do you know? Can you? Oh, you do know?
We did save the pump, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but,
So you
okay.
know how to figure that out? Okay, well, that is awesome.
Yeah, great.
It's just.
Well,
It's just a crude electrical. It's.
So,
Pumps drop.
I mean, can that be rebuilt to have it as a backup?
It's making, yes, if you know your pumps, you know your stuff, it's either the impeller that, like you got sand going through there, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the bearing, although it's supposed to design to take a certain amount of sand, that's the nature of the pump you had,
Mm-hmm.
but it could be the bearings.
Where is this pump right now?
It's in the wall. In the corner.
Okay, No, I would like us to find that out,
It's
please.
a big little house.
That's not, that's.
Okay,
It's a usually a 2-man live.
that's not something you want to frame on your wall or anything, right?
Oh, you make money, yes. Yes, it's going up.
All right,
I know, you have to put through the. I mean, provided I win the bid.
there you go. You just might, yeah.
Believe me, I'm still squawking, it's
All right.
going up on the wall.
All right, so
That's it.
any further discussion, questions, commission on any of this? All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the Allen Waterfront Pier emergency repair. No, Jimmy, I'm sorry.
Just not enough time.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And really no.
Okay, well,
We're still working on the railings in.
okay, let's jump to Oyster House because we need to have that down the road, real soon, but,
Yeah, well,
okay,
here, well, a few Thursdays ago, we had, Ridgepoint Electric come in and volunteer to install the rough-in for all of the lighting and the new electric.
okay,
Great deal, they got it done in a day. Some special thanks there to Brandon Dean and Rick Stafford, who gave it a full day doing it, and then Jeremy Day, the owner of Ridgepoint Electric, made sure that, they had time in their schedule to do it.
okay.
So, in fact, Jeremy's having his 30th wedding anniversary out here in the port here.
Who's out there right now? There's somebody-
That would be, Bruce property.
Okay,
If they can.
yeah,
At the end of the day.
all right. Yeah. Good.
We also have some commitments from, Darren Corliss, for doing some painting when we're ready at AJ Gennaro Contracting to help us work through some of the other aspects as we go along further down the.
All right. All right.
I want to thank the Shelton Journal, Jim Williams, for putting in an article written for Shelton Journal.
Okay,
For putting that in.
very nice.
Dawn is still off his feet, recovering from the ankle break. Sounds like he'll be fitted for a walking boot soon, but then once he's fitted for that walking boot, another 2 weeks before he really should be on.
So is he coming in limited?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not until he's
Okay.
he actually walking on the walking boot.
Have you, I mean, I know you've been talking with him, right? So
Yeah.
you doing okay?
You're welcome.
He's probably looking forward to getting back to work. Huh?
Yeah, I'm sure he's getting started.
Man,
And then we've got Rob Schmidt, who's been covering and learning more about the water system.
what's the lesson learned on that as far as, you know,
Really, and when we have work being done that requires 2 people on site at the same time. On site at the same time.
thank you. All right,
And I am working towards that being a full-time work scenario in the coming budget, because we do need 2 people working together at a certain portions of the day for coordinating things that 2 people require.
right, for
So-
safety reasons.
So, we will be making some adjustments so that we can find that money in our HR. So, which means we'll be looking at reducing some of Don's hours in order to make it work. But Don's been working too many hours anyway.
And John's okay with that?
We've had a discussion and we're moving in that direction, so yes.
Well, what's that look like? I mean,
Well, right now, because Don is here,
yeah.
he's working too many hours and he's getting taxed on social security.
Oh, I see.
You know, we just need to sit them down, get them in front of a financial advisor, lay the path out,
Uh-huh.
so that we have a better scenario for him.
Yeah, okay, I understand. So, that leads me to, like, as far as, here we are, summer, right? So, and, the idea that I was throwing out to you, for for volunteer, back to volunteerism in terms of putting some, getting some of that energy into the port, reaching out, maybe like thinking ahead in terms of 2026 summer, for example, is reaching out to the high school and students who want to do, serious students in their senior year, coming from junior to senior year, are looking for a resume that shows that they did some volunteer work. And not all your, I mean, I wasn't in that mindset when I was a junior going to senior year of high school, but so some were, there's always a small percentage of students that recognize, wow, okay, this is a good place, right? My community, do volunteer work. And there's something to be said for that. I believe that at high school, that certainly the leadership at the high school would recognize that that's an important part of the students moving forward from high school on into their journey in life, that have some volunteer work, and that we can be a part of that for some of those students to do that in the summertime. So just food for thought.
Well, we do have something.
We do have some. The only reason the park works the way it does with the limited amount of hours that we can afford right now with Dawn now is that Patsy, Sheer Andrews and Ruth Nelson have been down here 2 to 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And that's why all of our hedge shrubs are all flat and in shape.
Looks good.
And,
Are we recognizing them?
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
Should we?
I've seen them down there.
And
I didn't know that.
over the years, Patsy, Ruth, out here working on the park, literally without people knowing.
So I think we're falling short in an area here.
There was a few years that they kind of stopped, but they had gone back on the bandwagon and are really stepping up.
I'm,
Can we write him a thank you letter?
that's what I want to
That
do.
would be,
And I'd like to publicly recognize them too at a meeting. And we did a letter like that. Whether they show up or not doesn't matter. If you put a letter together.
that would be a great one to pass off. Take a little bit off my plate.
Okay,
If I could get a letter from one of you and then I could, maybe, help go through it with you. That would be a sensible.
well, I don't even know who you just brought up some names, for example, that I didn't even know their name. So,
I can give
This
you all
is-
that.
so, I mean, so hold on. I'll write a letter, I'll do that, but I want more.
I'll give you one.
I want information on who all the volunteers are that I'm unaware of besides the committee for the water. We've had a discussion before. I would like to have a list as far as, if they come in once a month or a couple times a month. You just said the names, they come 2, 3 days a week. I wasn't aware of that.
It's only been over.
Okay, all right, that's fair. So let's, you give me that information, I'll write a letter. All right, okay, cool, thank you.
Hey, back on the Oyster House, I wanted to say thank you to Vine for getting back in the saddle, and, she's trying to spend the grant that she received. I just want people to know that I want to thank her effort in getting everything together, and we're getting some stuff moved forward that there's no way that I could have gotten done. I just want to thank Vine Knight for all that.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And just an email alone is not going to be good.
No.
When you do, give me a call and I'll swing by and get it. I'm just more conventional than that. Okay. All right, cool. Thanks. Oh, and I just have to say this, it's kind of off point here, but with it, what's the individual's name that I have a hard time coordinating with to do
The railing?
well, down there on the slopes for
Yeah,
the speed line.
That's Rob Schmidt.
For Tom.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Where is he now?
He's probably at home. He aggravated us. I had to get over the weekend. So.
Anyway, that's fair. All right, that was just impulsive on my part, but, okay, because I would like to so when I come by, I'd like to coordinate something, with you.
And he's here, 6 to 11.
Okay, good. So when I come by to get what I need from you regarding the letter, unrelated, but I'll make it the connection. I want to swing by and meet you. Okay, so do that. All right. All right, anything else on,
Well, we finally got the line voltage power removed from the beauty pole on the North Shore. That was, provided by volunteer labor, UR Electric. Quinn Dell and Tommy, I did not have Tommy's last name. They were both there, putting together all of that movement of, the electrical lines that were installed on the beauty pole without the consideration that, well, we have to pay for that. So now we don't have to pay for it anymore, and, the PUD has already reported that,
Right.
and, we won't get any attachment bill anymore.
but we're still paying for these down here, along the highway, right? Aren't we?
Oh, you mean the lights?
Yeah,
Yeah, that.
is that ever gonna go away? I mean, we'll tackle that some other time, but. What?
That's it.
Yeah, okay, anyway.
We have to vote.
I know what I'm not asking to make a decision here. I mean, is that ever gonna go away? But we definitely need to look at that. All right.
Well, the problem is, have it go away,
Then there's
and
no
nobody
light.
else can send us the lights.
No, I don't mean it go away. I mean, I was trying to figure out another way for it to get paid, but we'll just have. a
So we
discussion
can
on
find
that.
the pay for it, it's a safety thing.
Yes, big time safety thing.
Not necessarily.
I think
We can
It should be a
lot to pay for it. It belong here.
I think so too.
Oh, wait, it only goes at wheel line. Does it go up wheel line?
No, it goes up like.
Lakeland Drive, that's what it, okay. Yeah,
We don't get the county help.
Go ahead, I'm on.
You're like,
All right. We'll take one for the team for a while. All right, anything else on the port safety and security that you wanna?
No.
Okay, so Belfort Water Extension. And
Sewer.
wait, sewer extension. Did I say that really?
and those kids.
They are related in a lot of areas, but,
Oh, you mean the kids. Oh.
yeah. That was,
They have not been back.
that was the thing.
So the sewer thing is interesting because, there was money available, which is really interesting that, there was an article in the paper. That there's money that showed up, which seems to be a surprise to our county, which was interesting. There, I'll be careful about this, but I don't want to take a position on how we feel the board on that. Because until I know how we're unincorporated in the north end here. As, there's not really a solid representation other than self-interest.
Wasn't there also, wasn't the, Chamber of Commerce for Bumper meet?
Yeah,
Vote on it?
they didn't meet and they haven't, put together a letter yet. They did-
Okay.
But, oh, they didn't take the vote?
They did take a vote.
And you don't know what the
I have
result
the
of that? Okay, cause I know they were.
content of the letter could change how I feel
I
about it.
mean, how does the population in North Mason feel about it? That, the people that would end up paying for it, because you can see that it's creeping in the whole sewer system concept. As we move okay, there'll be some more. You've got big commercial stuff coming in just on the other side of the county line, right? And so it's like, who's gonna benefit from that? Well, it's gonna be Bremerton. We have the sewer system, but Bremerton benefits from it.
I'm watching,
You know what I mean?
yeah, watching the meeting, that was with the county and the city of Bremerton. I don't know if you saw that.
I did it.
Okay, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
I had some discussion with Dan Griffey, with Steve Dunkel, you know, I mean, trying to reach out kind of to
Yeah.
get a better handle on it.
Okay,
One point that was brought up, and I think this is important for us to remember, you know, we do have economic development, that we need to do.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we have a valuable asset that we want to protect.
That's
and
right.
That's our sewer system. So if we make a stand, I would say I'm not necessarily against it, but we have to have good agreements in place to protect us
yeah,
and our asset and make sure that we have shared, at least make it to where we are really protected, that we are in the driver's seat.
I mean, we
Because we
can,
are in the driver's seat.
yeah, well, but we are, and we aren't, we should be,
Well, we need to be.
that's what I,
And
exactly.
I think that's where we, at least what we can say is that county, make sure that you're protecting our asset if there is a connection.
Because if we're not careful, in here in the North Basin area,
Mhm.
whatever they do just across the other county line could exhaust the reserves, if you will, of what that sewer system can handle.
Sure.
And then the very thing that we have is no longer available to the community unless they did more
Infrastructure changes
infrastructure
there.
changes.
I understand, and I'm against it, but my understanding on that note is they overbuilt the welfare septic system. From what I got from what they
Yeah.
did, I mean, so right now there is a lot more connections available than potential, you know, than what, so for a while, that's not a problem. But the businesses and stuff, a few businesses I've talked to and stuff, they're against it. Because they see, I mean, if we're gonna do economic development, it should be economic development in Mason County. And for our people, not supporting economic development is gonna hurt our businesses in our county. Because you start having businesses on the other side of that border, it's gonna pull people away from our local businesses.
You
And
know,
that's gonna greatly hinder
yeah, I
uh,
agree with that. But I
our
have to
people.
say one thing too, you know, and I don't know, don't have a crystal ball,
Right.
but you know, it was, Commissioner Tarswell had mentioned that the big box stores probably aren't gonna be building. And I say that because if you look at now how Amazon, you know, there's all these Amazon trucks and driveways and people are out shopping as like they used to.
Mhm.
So I don't expect to see big box places, you know,
Home
because we
Depot.
want to protect Mitchell and, you know, McClendon's and,
Home Depot though is not, it's a big box, but it's not something you get through Amazon. I think that is a direct threat to Ace Hardware and Mitchell, because that is not going to be something that is shipped.
Right.
Or you do online, you have to go to, you know,
Right.
to go to Home Depot, Lowe's, or whatever. And so that is a direct threat to our stores.
but I
But we,
haven't heard of anything going in like that. I
Oh,
don't
I
see
have.
anything,
I heard
You
Home
have-
Depot,
Home
Yeah.
Depot. Has there been permits started or
the
anything like
Chamber
that?
of Commerce, I believe had that conversation somewhere, so there's a connection there, so it's something
Okay.
we need to look at.
Yeah,
But the reason, so that's kind of where I'm going with this. So it's not the Home Depot issue. If Home Depot's going there, there's gonna be a lot more than Home Depot.
Sure.
That's how it works, right?
right,
So activity creates more activity. It's kind of like, as developing a community, you put a bank and a post office somewhere in the middle of nowhere, suddenly there's gonna be a lot of community that will show up, you know, building and developing and everything else. So,
Mhm.
and that's what's gonna happen there, in my opinion. And that being said, well, what, if that's the sewer system, because they have a vested interest in Bremerton to lead into what we have,
right.
for that to all work. And, I think we need to have a voice on it for sure. It's good to have a discussion about it. But we need to know more about what that looks like.
Agreed.
And the North Mason Chamber has a little bit more, that I think we should even invite somebody from the chamber to our meeting to discuss things that they might know.
can we do that?
Carrie is, be a great, yeah, ask Carrie. Okay.
And you'll have their letter by our next meeting, correct?
Yeah, So this would be good this is why one of the things that I was hoping to do is have, get somebody in the community that's interested in, who wants to go to meetings or wants to give back to the community, and I mean it, and go to chamber meetings, go to the voice meeting, go to these different meetings, and then show up once a month for our meeting and present to us, the big concepts and ideas that are going on that are rolling around in conversation, discussion, these different, different organizations. So then we can,
You know,
as
as
a
a board,
board-
we could request a public information officer from each organization.
He did
we need volunteers.
promise to
No,
go to
we
the,
write a letter to each one of them and ask for a public information officer to come to our meeting
Oh,
formally. You
Oh,
know,
that would be-
then it might.
that's a great
Then they
idea.
can, you know, start doing their homework for us.
And that wouldn't be a lot of extra work for you, Travis, if they got into a rhythm of showing up to doing that. Yeah,
Or if I can get addresses, then I'll write the letter of request.
okay.
Travis
I'll
did
get you
go,
the information.
Travis did go to the Chamber of
I'll
Commerce.
do my letter and you do your letter.
Sure.
There's gotta be a letter there for you somewhere. Anyway. All right. I just think it's a good way to draw. We gotta draw on what we already have here in Mason. Then we can have more discussions about what we think we know, as opposed to what's really going on.
Yeah, but I think again, you know, with the jobs, we want jobs around here. We also want to be able to have. Now, from what I understand, you know, our sewer system can handle a lot of residential, which is great.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if there's a big manufacturing place for jobs, you know, then we can create some more housing for that. There is supposed to be more housing, but you know, if we do connect to something like that, a manufacturing plant or whatever, then we would benefit. And I want to protect our asset. We've spent a lot of money on that sewer.
Yeah, it's true. And I don't want this like so if we don't do this, what you're talking about as in North Mason in terms of putting sewer or making the sewer system more available to the North Mason population as opposed to exhausting it with what's coming to Bremerton.
Mhm.
Either way, there's a certain person or persons that benefits one way or the other.
True.
That doesn't probably have a real, well, you can't have it here and people are turning this away, then what's gonna go over here is still gonna get the same result for this certain person or person. Okay, I don't wanna throw names out there, because I don't think that's fair. But I'm talking about, the players involved, that are benefiting financially from this, that takes, we're at a crossroads right now in this situation, I can say that. Really are.
It's, I would like to see, maybe, no, I think it needs to be in Mason County.
Right,
That's where our sewer system and I mean, that's what we're here for, is economic development for our area.
yeah,
So that's what we should be supporting, not supporting economic development for something that's across the border. It's
yeah,
gonna take away from our resources, and Kitsap County is gonna get the rewards, not us. The septic system will benefit because they'll have two extra connections.
Yeah.
Just like our water system as it goes on,
yeah.
gets more,
And I don't care about big
But that's
financial,
like the shared sales tax, and that's something else that could be in there.
Oh.
They do have something like that, and we would share some of that sales tax.
Well, right now, I think,
There's lots of other ways to negotiate.
yeah,
right now, I just see them getting all the rewards
yeah.
and us getting the short end. of the
Well, and I
stick.
don't mind big financial gain by a small group of people, as long as it's serving our community well.
And that we're, yeah.
You know, that's the whole point.
Yeah, some of this is being pushed by a few people.
I know,
Greatly benefiting. most of
Yeah.
it. And
and that's okay if it serves our community as opposed to, and I don't mind even a shared gain in terms of sharing that whole system, the whole sewer system with across the county line, as long as it's not taken away from what the purpose of that sewer system was to serve our community. That's the
Yeah.
thing, and I don't know the answer to that question, but that's why I'm not ready to take a position until I know more. I think the idea of writing a letter, bringing people in, different boys have, the boys come, make the chamber come. There's probably so many others that would be willing to come here that represent North Mason. And that's the only way to draw on, because we're unincorporated in North Mason. That's the only way to get attention to this in a bigger way, and that we maybe even lean into the commissioners in this county about a direction that's probably gonna better fit for our community.
Maybe we can talk to Randy and then.
I mean, does yeah.
I mean, he represents this area.
Well, yeah, do the commissioners even know how the population feels, the community about the sewer?
Well, most of everybody I've talked to didn't want it in the first place. Remember when they
Yeah.
extended it? But it was pushed through anyway.
So what the problem is, now that we have it, we don't wanna miss the mark on it serving our community.
Yes.
Instead of someplace else.
Well, another thing that concerns me too, we want building here. But we have to create the climate that's really easy for builders too.
Right.
Kitsap is harder. Mason is a little easier, but not that
To
much.
navigate, yeah, up costs too.
Yeah, so we need to make sure that hopefully, I don't know, that's another.
Okay.
Another project to try to make it easier for developers to come and build. And see well.
So Commissioner Netherland, and joining us in meeting and then reaching out to North Mason and Boyce and whatever else you come up with in North Mason, that would be like, even somebody coming in, talking to us about, the bypasses coming in. Bring us up to date, or come to the meeting.
Yeah.
And tell us where we're at with that whole thing.
I'll just wait to see if I can talk to Randy, see if I can give a call, see if he can talk to
Well,
Tom.
even also, yes, and also maybe Representative Griffey, because he is dealing with, the actual
Right.
finances for the bypass.
All right,
you know.
so, yeah, Mr. Griffey, Netherland, and then, somebody from the chamber of boys come in and
Sure.
give them 10 or 15 minutes of the floor, put that into the meeting. But I think now we're actually getting somewhere who we are for. It's a platform for the community to know what's going on.
And I think in this particular case, this issue is something directly part of our court. This is something we should have been involved in. Instead of just getting kind of.
Well, we're getting
Side
involved
line.
now. Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, it should have been, we should have been involved from the get-go.
Well, you should have been here a long time ago.
We could offer some additional information that I have, even as we limited as I work through.
Okay,
Learning aspects of this expansion and dealing with other.
Okay.
But, there is a real scenario where the shipyard would be expanding to that region, if sewer was available, which is hundreds of low-paid jobs. Meaning, most likely, hundreds of new houses in the Belfair, Mason County area, which would directly relate to the local economy.
Yeah.
Without that expansion, there is no shipyard expansion up there in the hill. Okay.
up there by the Mason Transit, or back behind there.
Not in Mason County.
Oh, okay,
That's the whole point of this expansion, is to move into those more friendly industrial areas that are just across the line. Unfortunately, the Kitsap County, Mason County line is in a really bad spot geographically for where we put sewers.
Not true.
Put that sewer system a mile further into Mason County, maybe we're not talking about this, or maybe do.
sure,
But where it's set, it's right next to the line.
I know. There's a reason for that, though, I think.
And there are a lot of regional and, systems where a county owns a system and a city make an agreement to actually share the infrastructure. But if Mason County doesn't get a more than favorable deal with the amount of the debt they have on the system, well, then maybe it's a non-starter.
I think the EDC needs to be on it.
But there should be a way to protect everybody. And those conversations should happen.
All right, and EDC should rep that discussion on use platform. Don't you think? Talk about,
Sure.
huh?
Sure.
Yeah, like him will come in and lead into this discussion on that mean, I don't know if they should or not, what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I should, I just
What do you-
probably know too much.
Yeah,
Yeah, they should.
All right, fair enough. You would know better, but, maybe that could be at a different meeting.
Well, they should, I guess because I know that they have been for it.
Okay.
And it's economic development, I understand that. So I don't know. And that's about really all I can say. I can't
Okay,
speak
but don't
for
they
them.
represent is there interested? Shouldn't they have a balanced interest in
Yes,
not just the broader scope of things, but just the county?
they should,
Yeah,
yes,
interesting. But it'd be good to hear all sides.
I agree.
I'll see what they're saying to that next meeting. We have a meeting coming up.
All right, so there's a lot we just threw out there for sure. Get it? So I'd like to see more of that at our meetings. A couple each meeting coming in and talking to us about what's going on. And what kind of discussions they're having in their meetings and they can give us the bullet points, if you will, about what's front and center of their representing on things. Okay. So anything else?
That is the extent of the workshop.
Yeah, that was
Did everybody read this? This is pretty informative.
I did, honestly, I did not, so we see.
This is from county commissioners, Sundays. They raised quite a few, the very last page in the pack.
Yeah.
They'll reflect this.
okay. I think, oh yeah.
But this is something that,
Oh, the key takeaway.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to say, I support, the county. I mean, they know their business, they know their job. I certainly don't want to disregard what their thoughts are or anything like that.
Good. All right. So. Thank you for this, Travis. Good. Anything else?
So.
That was,
And by the way, when is Allyn Day? July?
18, 19, 20.
Okay. So,
Right up. 4th of July is on Friday.
yeah,
And they like to help me curb the madness.
So I agreed to, Leanne used to serve mussels on Sunday. I think it was the last Allyn Day, so I agreed to do that. I had her recipe and then I realized I couldn't.
oh no.
So I gotta find it again. I'll just find it. If you guys wanna come and help at all, serve mussels. They're steamed mussels.
I'll be here for the,
You will be?
yes.
Good.
I think, because last year I helped with our booth representing the Florida. Thank you, support to do that.
I did that for years, so thanks for taking it over.
Yeah, last year you weren't able to. Some came up at the last minute, so I think it's,
Might be out of town. Put a question mark there.
there's support that
Yeah,
we do that, just as our.
I've done that for many, many years. It is important.
Right. Will be, and Bruce will be
18, 19, 20.
next week. Right now, he's,
Well, I
Yeah,
have a dig up in the
temporary
air. I
job.
might be out of town.
so. Money talks.
I'll let you
He's like a good one.
need help serving. I'm gonna try to bring a couple people with me to help, but I know that when Leanne did it, took about 3 or 4 people to do the process, but hopefully I can. Oh, and if I can't find her, recipe, one of the employees' husbands was 5-star chef that used to write a lot of the recipes for Cheese Factory, so if not, then give me the recipe. Or the mussels.
What about her family might have it?
I know I haven't called
Oh, okay.
Allyn yet, I will. But I don't know, like I said, I found it, and then I realized I couldn't.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
good. So our next meeting is the 4 p.m. meeting. Okay,
Oh, yeah, that's right, the 14th,
yeah,
okay,
That's regular.
Yeah.
At 4 p.m.
at 4 p.m.
okay. Well, very well laid out for us, Travis, appreciate that.
Of course.
Always do. Anything else, commissioners? If not, we're adjourned.